How do we kill it, Ash? There's gotta be a way of killing it. How? How do we do it?
You can't. Bullshit. You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism.
Hey guys, tonight we're going to be talking about the movie Alien. Let's get at it.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. You got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember,
Alien is a 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon, based on a story by O'Bannon and Ronald Susset. It follows a spaceship crew who investigates a derelict spaceship and are hunted by a deadly extraterrestrial creature. The film stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. It was produced by Gordon Carroll, David Giller, and Walter Hill. So Alien came out a year after I was born, so I was one, so I didn't get to catch it in the movies, but I remember loving this movie. Kate, I think you have a real passion about this movie, so I'll let you kick it off, man, and just tell us what you think about it.
Man, how do I even get started about this movie? This movie, I can remember watching it years ago and just being captivated by the practical effects that they used, the sets that they used, and just those panoramic shots of this beautiful commercial ship called the Nostromo. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And yeah, when I saw those things, man, I mean, it got me hooked on it, and it got me into the franchise. And obviously, there's been several films to come out in this franchise, but obviously, starting with this one that came out in '79, like you mentioned, it's just awesome. You know, everything from the sound design, and the way that they had the face huggers in this movie. I mean, it was just amazing. Certainly one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely a good movie. But so the movie starts out when the Nostromo was on its way back to Earth after hauling a staggering 20 million tons of mineral oil. The 7-member crew is in a stasis when they receive a mystery transmission from a nearby planetoid, prompting the ship's computer to awaken them. Following directives from their corporate employers, the crew detaches from the refinery and lands on the planetoid, causing some damage to the ship. Captain Dallas, Executive Officer Kane, Navigator Lambert venture out and to investigate the origins of the signal, leaving Warrant Officer Ripley, Science Officer Ash, and engineers Brent and Parker to monitor the status and make necessary repairs. Brent, what do you think when they first landed on the planet down there to check out what was going on?
Yeah, so I mean, this was the first time I've ever seen the movie, so I thought it was a good movie.
The original guy that come up was actually John Hurt.
He played Kane.
He's the one that played Kane.
Yeah, he was the executive officer, Kane.
So one thing I like about this movie that surprised me was it's really a psychological thriller. So Kane is the first guy to raise out of his bed. He seems like he's the central figure. It kind of it's like Psycho, the movie Psycho, when it shows Curtis, like she's on the poster, everyone thinks she's going to be the main character, and then she's the first person to die, and it just throws you off. You're like, whoa, anyone can die in this movie. That's what they do with Kane. So when they land on the planet, he's the main guy. He's the one taking the lead, going into the foreign spaceship. And I mean, one thing that stuck out in that scene was how beautiful the design was. And I told my wife that I mean, this movie looks better than movies made today. I mean, the design was fantastic. Whenever you see the huge alien guy that's dead, like the pilot of their spaceship, like that was awesome. Apparently, Scott used his children, like his little kids, to shoot that scene to make it show. He was trying to make the ship seem that much bigger instead of using adult actors, and so I thought that was cool.
Yeah, a fun fact about that scene right there, Brent, is they were in space suits and it was real hot down there that day. And they kept the adult actors that were there, they kept passing out, and Ridley Scott wouldn't do anything about it. He just, would cool them off, get them back up there to take another take. Well, he only decided to do something about the heat going on is when the two kids started passing out as well. So then he knew he had to do something because these actors weren't in a healthy environment.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that makes sense. And then one other cool thing I wanted to mention, and Corky, I'm sure you already saw this too, but the laser lights in the room with the alien eggs, they borrowed those lights from the Who, the band,
yep,
because the band happened to be playing right next door,
yep,
and so they borrowed the laser lights from the band. So I thought that was a cool little fun fact.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Speaking of the visuals, I'll give you another fun fact. Ridley Scott wanted to introduce a kind of a sexual theme or undertone to the movie. If you'll notice, when they get down on the planet and they go to enter the alien ship that's down there, I never caught it, but the front of the ship supposedly is supposed to be a vagina, and the guys are going inside the vagina. Also, on the cover of the poster, the egg that's got the split in it with the glowing green coming out of it. Supposedly, Ridley Scott also patterned that after a vagina, so he would had some you know undertones going on with his
Had a little
decorating of these
fetish
scenes.
there.
I
Yeah, he
did
had
not
something
know
going
that.
on.
That's
I did not know
Yeah, I
that
mean
either.
okay.
yeah,
I
I
didn't
thought
know
we
it
could
either.
get into it a little bit, but that was the whole symbolism behind the movie. It was supposed to be
Symbolism,
about,
yeah.
and the alien itself is supposed to look like a penis. So,
I
and
kind of see that,
Well,
especially when the baby one comes out.
so
and
Yes.
and
I
what's funny is when so they were trying to figure out how are they going to get the alien from the planet to their spaceship. And so they were arguing about how they were going to do it. Then the director, he had a thought. He calls I guess it was the producer. Said, I figured it out. So what? Said, the alien's going to screw somebody.
And
Yeah,
latch to his face.
That's
yeah.
how he got the lash to the face, and it goes down. So it's impregnating Kane.
Yep.
And I might add, like, how crazy it is they managed to make that face hugger look that creepy. Like back then, it looked so
That's
weird. Like it's weird looking fingers. It's you could see its tentacle tighten around his throat, and he's struggling, and you just see him just go out, and you're just like, holy crap, dude, this is
and
crazy.
that was a cool scene whenever
Yes.
they've got him back on the ship, and they've got him laying down and they're trying to take the face hugger off at that point. And whenever they break the finger, that's when they find out that the blood is basically acid,
Yes.
Yeah.
very acidic, and eats through it. Ate through like what, 3 levels of their ship?
Yeah.
Each drop
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
They started tracking down each level in the ship to make sure it didn't
Yeah.
bust the bottom of the ship out into space.
And so yeah, whenever right before they broke the finger off, or right after they broke the finger off, that tentacle still tightened around his neck, so it wasn't letting go.
Yeah.
That was a very cool scene, and for what they were working with back then, in 1979, that was some really cool practical effects that they had.
Not
Oh,
just in 1979. It's still cool today.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I mean, but
And
you're looking at this is not even in the 80s yet. Okay,
no,
this is still in the 70s, and they had some practical effects that looked that good. I was talking to my wife because we rewatched it on Sunday, and I was telling her, I was like, whenever they've got the shots of the ship and whatnot, it kind of resembles kind of what they did with Star Wars. And I think that they probably used a little bit of those techniques to make that, but they did it even better. Like it was really dark, it was
I
really
loved it. Yeah.
dimly lit and everything. And the same things that they were doing, or at least some of the same things that they were doing with Star Wars, they were doing in Alien. And I think that at least for 1979, they took it a step forward and did it even better.
but that is why practical effects, in my opinion, will always be better than CGI.
you can just
You know?
appreciate
Yeah.
it so much more.
Yeah.
Like those guys had to handcraft all this stuff, and this may jump ahead a little bit, actually, not that much, but the face hugger itself was actually made with real like shellfish parts and animal organs. That had
Yep,
a little
it
bit of
sure
sense
was.
of
Yeah, I
realism
saw
there.
that.
And it also
And
started
so
to stink.
yeah, so imagine that
Yeah.
guy, the actor. If they, I don't know if they had like the actual actor sitting there with that on his face. I didn't read into that, but imagine how bad that must have smelled, like him sitting there for like how many takes, because
Oh,
Ridley
yeah.
Scott was like, "This is not what I want to see."
Yeah, I bet that was disgusting, man. So the face hugger latches onto his face. You know, it kind of takes him out, and I think later on in the movie they find it dead, and it just releases on its own. Correct?
Yeah, after it's pretty much completed it's
Yeah.
what it was wanting to do with him, injecting him with this, I guess you could call it the serum.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
kind of
The
going off like
serum?
the sexual stuff, you're
Some of that
talking about,
magic liquid, you know. So
and it just
anyway,
unlatches itself. Yeah.
yeah. So it unlatches itself, and I think they find it dead later. But Kane, he eventually wakes up, and he seems like he's okay. But he later collapses during the meal, and he's convulsing and all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, an alien bursts out of his chest. You know, it's killing him. You know, and then it runs out of his chest and vanishes into the ship. And it says, with no conventional weapons at their disposal, the crew must devise a way to track and capture the creature, utilizing makeshift tools like motion tractors, electric pop prods, and flamethrowers. Brett follows their cat and meets a gruesome fate at the hands or claws of the now fully grown alien, whose rapid evolution presents a catastrophic threat to the crew. As the remaining members navigate their perilous situation, Dallas attempts to lure the alien into an airlock, but ends up getting ambushed. Now I know for a fact that when that alien burst out of his chest, Ridley Scott didn't tell everybody what was going to happen. Am I right on that?
That it was
You
a
the
surprise, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, the fear you see on their face is the fear, the genuine fear that, you know, that was their genuine reaction to that thing busting out of his chest. And that's one of the most iconic scenes in cinematic history, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. So like the sound, like they're all eating food, they're all cutting up, having jokes, and it just gets real quiet, and it kind of focuses in on Kane as he's starting to choke on something. And you just sit there and you're like, Brent, I'd love to see his reaction to this because I'd seen this, a bunch of times, but you start to see something happen and you see blood at his chest, and they also incorporated animal organs into this scene to also add
Nice.
to the realism. And so that scene is just so tense. And even with it being back in like the 70s, like we've mentioned, I mean, it just holds up to today's standards, and I think even exceeds them with just how it felt. So, Brent, how did you feel, witnessing that scene for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I love the way that they did it. I love the way that they did it because you don't know if he's laughing at the joke that they made. You don't know if he's coughing to try to make it seem like they made bad food. So it is kind of like up in limbo until the characters in the movie, they find out that, oh, this is serious, about the same time that you as the audience finds out, oh, this is serious. And one thing that I noticed is when the alien popped out of his chest, the guy, he's on the table and his hands are still convulsing. And one thing that I saw was that Ridley Scott wanted to mimic this after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
And that scene has Texas Chainsaw Massacre written all over it. An alien popping out of someone's chest and a guy convulsing on the table because he just got impaled by a little alien. I mean, that was a crazy scene.
Well, Ridley
So
Scott, he said he wanted this to be a Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. That's how he referred to this movie while he was making it.
So while we're on the subject of the alien bursting out of the guy's chest, whenever they went to the first spaceship and they were looking around, um, Ripley actually comes over and she's talking to Ash, and she was like, "Hey, you care if I listen to the signal or whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And she listens to it and she says, "This is not a distress signal. This is a warning." We need to go tell these people that something's wrong. And Ash talks her out of it. Meanwhile, they have already made it to where the previous alien already had the thing burst out of its chest. And that was good foreshadowing and good storytelling. So you kind of knew what was already about to happen, what was coming.
Oh,
Then
did the
when
big
you did
alien in the
see it,
spaceship? Did he have
yeah,
his
yeah,
chest? Oh, I didn't
he
know
had
that.
a
Yeah.
hole in his chest. And so you kind of knew, okay, now we know, something's wrong. So then whenever the alien burst out of John Hurt's chest, or I think it's John Hurt, um, whenever it burst out of his chest and it was so graphic, I mean, you were like, okay, that's what happened to that alien that was back there on that other ship. Now, things are going down. And one more thing about that is Mel Brooks did a movie called Spaceballs back in 1987, and he actually spoofed that entire dinner scene with the alien coming out of John Hurt's chest. And he used John Hurt. So at the end of Spaceballs, they're in this like space diner, kind of like a Waffle House in space. And you've got John Hurt sitting there, and he was telling the story or whatever. And they tell a joke, and everybody starts laughing. And all of a sudden, John Hurt starts choking on some food, and they're like, "Oh man, this guy,
Hilarious.
give him mouth to mouse or whatever." And this other guy jumps up and he says, "Give this guy some Pepto Bismol." And he pushes him down on the table, and the alien busts out of his chest again. And John Hurt actually says, "Oh no, not again." Now, it was funny because it was spoofing the alien, okay, but I never understood "Oh no, not again," because in 1987 I hadn't seen Alien all the way through for the first time yet. So I didn't get the reference. But it was funny, the alien, in Spaceballs, he jumps out of the guy's chest, and then the alien puts on a little top hat, and he starts dancing around and
Yeah.
moving food and stuff. If you hadn't seen Spaceballs, you need to see it. But
Yeah, that's Spaceballs is a great movie. We've got to cover that in the future. But I got a quick trivia question for you, Daniel. Since
Sure.
you're talking about that dinner scene there, what
Yes.
did they call that scene as it was being made?
What did they call that scene as it was being made?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
they called it the Last Supper.
I knew that. I was about to say.
Right. Oh, I missed that one in the research.
Yep, they called it the Last Supper. So we're going to try something new this week, guys. Going into this, we talked about some stuff we could do new with the show. Starting this week, toward the middle of the show, Daniel's going to hit us on with some trivia, a few questions, and he's going to ask them. We'll see between us three, who can get the most right, Daniel. So kick it off for us, baby. Trivia.
All righty, I got you guys some trivia questions. The way that we're going to do this is I'm going to ask 3 normal trivia questions, and it's just whoever can get it right, But then I'm going to give a bonus question, and then
Okay.
I think this is how we're going to start doing this in every week. Is I'm going to ask like 3 normal questions, and then I'll give a bonus question that's a little bit, harder or abnormal. So, question number 1, and this is just a toss up for anybody. We've already discussed it, so how good is your memory? What was the name of the ship?
Nostromo.
Nostromo.
Nostromo. Very good. Very
I'm
good.
sitting here looking at it on the screen.
Me too.
All right. So, question number 2. What were they transporting?
Minerals.
Iron ore.
Yeah, it was iron ore, mineral ore.
Actually,
Okay.
20 million tons of mineral
That's
oil.
right.
Okay. So, now here's number 3, and it's going to lead us into the next segment. Okay. But we still got that bonus question coming. So, be ready for it.
All
Question number 3. What was the real mission? What was Ash's mission?
To get the
Ash-
alien on board the ship.
Yes, from Mother.
Yes.
That's right. To secure the alien specimen.
Yep.
All right, so that's going to lead into the next segment. But just for some giggles here, the bonus question, and this is quite a bit harder, okay, especially if you guys don't know actors. But the bonus question is, name at least one other movie that each member of the crew was in.
Oh, dang.
I can do it off
man.
the top of my head, except for one character.
I can do one right now. So
All right,
Kane.
give me
Kane,
Kane.
Kane is Ollivander from Harry Potter.
Kane is Ollivander from Harry Potter.
I can go Ghostbusters, Sigourney Weaver.
Oh man, I should have thought of that
Ghostbusters,
one.
I tell you.
I should have thought of that one.
Brent, do you have an answer for anybody?
I have no idea. I'm terrible
Wait,
with actors.
Wait, Daniel.
I know
Wait.
I know that
Go ahead,
the
Brent.
woman, the lead woman is in Aliens. So
Hey, that counts. It's a separate
Yeah.
movie.
So the android Ash, he's
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings,
Yes, he is. He is Bilbo Baggins.
and I only know that because Daniel told me this morning. He
Yeah.
actually told me both of these.
that's
So
cool.
you
He's
got
Bilbo Baggins? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Bilbo Baggins, and you've got Ollivander.
yeah, like they're teaming up.
Nice.
I'll go ahead and give you. Okay, so the two maintenance guys. One of them. Give me the two maintenance guys' actual names because I don't have them pulled up.
Oh,
Let's see. I
so
don't know.
one of them,
Should
one of
be
the
Harry Dean
technicians-
Stanton.
Yeah, Harry
Y'all
Dean
fit
Stanton.
y'all fit Kodo.
Harry Dean Stanton was in the movie Christine,
And Parker.
and he was also in The Godfather Part 2.
Really?
Yes, and
Like an
Harry
extra?
Dean Stanton was also in a movie called Red Dawn.
Hey, I know that.
It's a good movie.
That's a good movie.
And then his buddy, his maintenance buddy, and I can't remember what that guy's name is, but he was Arnold Schwarzenegger's buddy in The Running Man.
Really? Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
He was
Well, I would have never known that.
No, I just know
well,
two.
so
the Running Man. The Running
I'm-
Man's another Stephen King.
so I'm an actor person. And when I was going back and rewatching that, even though I had seen the movie before, I forgot about all those actors that are in the movie. And so I'm sitting there going, oh man, that's Tom Skerritt. You know, he was in Top Gun. That's Ian Holm. He was Bilbo Baggins, you know, and I was going, oh man, this is cool. And I forgot that all of those actors were, you know, pretty big name actors back then. And I forgot that all of them, you know, was in that movie. And that makes it even more cool for me when I go back and I see, you know, those kind of actors in it, because they're real good actors.
Right. Well, you know, during the movie, we find out that Ash is his true mission is to get the alien to Earth, I'm assuming. And so Ash also anonymously predicts the demise of the rest of the crew. I think he tells them good luck or something like that. I
Yep.
forget what exact words he used.
He says you have my sympathies. and
You
he
have my
smiles.
sympathy, yeah.
Yeah.
So they go through all that, and the remaining three plan to activate Nostromo's self-destruct sequence as an escape in the shuttle. However, tragedy strikes as Parker and Lambert fall victim to the lurking alien while scavenging supplies. As Ripley initiates the self-destruct, she must confront the alien blocking her path. In a desperate attempt, she navigates the chaotic ship and narrowly escapes on the shuttle as Nostromo detonates behind her. So, you know, Ripley, she's being that sweet final girl trying to take on the alien, and it follows her. She thinks she's got it whipped and everything, and she's in the escape pod and she's preparing to enter stasis. I guess go to sleep until she gets to Earth, and she realizes the alien has followed her on board the escape pod, and they do battle and do all this other good stuff, and finally she shoots the alien or activates something, and it blasts the alien out into the void of space. So she gets it sucked out into space, and that way she can go enter stasis, and then she can begin her journey back home. So, and that's basically how the movie ends. So, how'd you guys think it ended?
Yeah, that was super tense, the ending of that movie, especially if you hadn't seen it before, you think, "Oh, she is literally, getting away," but you're also kinda thinking in the back of your head, "This is really strange that she got away this easily," like, something's not adding up.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. That
and you can actually tell in the background, you can see the tail of the alien, before you ever even, like, actually it gets revealed to you, and so I thought that was super cool to see, and Brent, how did you feel about that, especially being the first time watching it for you?
Oh yeah, I knew something was up because they didn't have the final showdown, and I don't think that she had ever before that ending scene. I don't think she had seen the alien. She just heard of the alien. She had never seen it. But I was going to mention too, you can see the alien throughout the movie, kind of in the background sometimes. And the ship, I thought it was beautifully designed because, Dad, you mentioned Star Wars. Star Wars is kind of like if you were on an Imperial spaceship, so it's nice and glamorous and all this. In this movie, you're on a blue collar iron ore hauling. It's like a equivalent of like a trucker, okay?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's very industrial. So you can see the alien blends in perfectly. So you see the alien in the chain with the chains when the guy randomly starts letting water fall over. I don't know what the point of that was, but yeah, the aliens in the chains. Then when she's escaping, when she presses the self destruction, um, and she's like running out, you can see the alien is uh, hiding like in the wall, kind of on some pipes. And then yes, you can see his tail whenever she's escaping on the spaceship, like to get out. And I knew there was a split second where I thought, wow, this is a terrible ending if she never even sees the alien. But as soon as, I mean, then she has the final showdown, and thought it was fantastic because you have, in Halloween, the final girl, Jamie Lee Curtis, she hides in a closet, but she doesn't fight back. She just screams and kind of pokes him in the eye with a uh,
Coat
Coat
hanger.
hanger.
coat hanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, a coat hanger. But she thinks she's going to actually do something about it. Puts on the suit and goes and takes care of business. So I I thought it was a great ending to the movie.
So I'll
Yeah, there
say
was
this.
Go ahead.
I'll say
Go ahead, Danny.
this. As she is detonating the Nostromo and she's getting on to the escape pod and whatnot, um, she gets away. The Nostromo, like it explodes like what 6 times or whatever. They
Yeah.
kept playing the scene. So you're sitting there, and if you're not paying attention and you don't see the alien in the background and you don't see its tail, then you think, okay, just like what Brent was talking about, this is kind of a anticlimactic ending. But then the ending keeps going. And so you know that the movie is not over because the scene just won't end. That's what would tip me off as a moviegoer. I'm sitting there going, okay, well, why is she, still sitting there, and why is she not just going ahead and getting into stasis? Why is the movie not, fast forwarding to whenever? It's because she hadn't had the real showdown yet. So when the scene just keeps on going and nothing seems to be really happening, that's your tip off for most movies. It's like,
Exactly.
okay, something's about to happen because the scene is continuing.
Oh, that was awesome. And a few moments before she actually got off the Nostromo, I really, really enjoyed the tense scenes that they were displaying as she was escaping the ship. And one scene in particular stuck out in my head was she was traveling through some hallway, and you just hear this alarm blaring, and it's nonstop. And I was sitting on my couch like, holy crap, this is freaking annoying. Like I feel super tense right now. And on top of that, with their great set design, like you see these strobe lights almost like
I was
flashing.
about to mention the strobe lights. Yeah. Yep.
Yes, like flashing everywhere. And I was worried that my dog was gonna pass out like beside me because I could just see him stare at the TV. I kind of shielded his eyes.
Throw him into a
You know,
seizure or something.
And that's
yeah,
what that was supposed to do. That blaring that just kept on going, that wouldn't stop, and the strobe lights and whatnot, that was purposely put in the movie to intentionally put you on edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like without knowing that the alien is chasing her and everything, when you hear that blaring the whole time and you've seen them strobe lights and whatnot, it automatically messes with your sensory stuff. So it automatically puts you on edge. And then, with the whole theme of the movie and the pacing and the timing, that's what made that scene.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie, man. It's definitely one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
I'll
But I
give
will say this: I like part two better.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. I am going to watch part two. I won't watch it tonight, but I will watch it eventually.
Have you never seen it?
I have seen it. It was just like, the first one. I'd seen it when I was younger
Right.
and really remember a whole lot about it. So I probably couldn't tell you a whole lot about part two. I've only seen it once. I'll go ahead and say I haven't seen it all the way through. I've probably only seen certain scenes of the movie on several occasions, and if you put everything together, I probably equaled seeing it once. But
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. One more little fun fact, you guys were talking about the sexual innuendos of this movie.
Yes.
So at the end of the movie, Sigourney Weaver does get down into her underwear. And of course, this being in the 70s, now I actually read an article about this, so I'm not just, talking. But in the 70s, the hairstyles were quite a bit bushier than what they are now. And that underwear was pretty close cut. And so that required Sigourney Weaver to do some trimming. And at first, she was not, into that. She didn't want to do anything down there. And Ridley Scott had a big problem with, trying to get her to do that. So
I'm just trying to figure out how, if you're the director of a movie, how do you start that conversation
Yeah.
out?
I really don't know,
no
but
clue.
there was, you had to cut back on some undergrowth there. And
Hey, Sigourney, can you see me in my office real quick, please? Just for a
Yeah.
minute.
And this was
Hey,
this was her first big role as well, I think, if I'm not
And
mistaken.
Yeah,
well,
that's
she
so that's
gave
what I was
Ridley
going to
Scott,
say.
she gave Ridley Scott some major pushback on that.
Oh,
What I was going to say is I have one more little fun fact kind of going into that. So, did anyone notice the song that she sung when she put on the suit and she was about to press the button
She
to
sang some kind of song, but I didn't
It's
spot
like a
it.
nursery rhyme or something, right? If I
eat?
remember
So,
correctly.
so I did not know this. I saw it on a video, just to be clear. But apparently, it's the closing song to "Dancing in the Rain," and it had so she. This was the first big role, like Kate said. This was the first big role that she'd ever had, and it was supposed to be Meryl Streep, but Meryl Streep turned it down, and so she got the role. And apparently, the cast they didn't think that this actress had paid her dues enough in Hollywood to get such a big role in this movie. So they were kind of giving her a hard time. That song was supposed to be apparently it's like an empowering song about at the end of the movie, the person in Dancing with the Rain shows that they are actually, it turns out they were the star of the movie the whole time. And so she sung that song as kind of a slap in the face to her other coworkers that that hey, you guys were in this movie, but I was the star of this movie the whole time. And apparently, the director got mad at her for singing the song because he then had to pay for the rights. He was like, "It's so good, we can't take it out, but now we have to pay the rights of this." It was not in the script. She just so it was good thinking on her, honestly.
That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that either.
It's pretty cool.
It's amazing the little tidbits you find out that stuff that happens when making movies happens, and all the little things that goes on in the background like that. sometimes some of the best mistakes end up being some of the best things in the movies too. You know it.
Oh yeah.
Was there anything interesting anybody found out about the cat, Jonesy? Like, was that Ridley Scott's cat or something?
You know, here's my question. Why did they keep wanting to go back and get the cat?
Dude, I don't know.
Look, I'll say this. If there's a mother alien chasing me, look, the cat's going to have to just wait because I'm getting out. You know what I'm
See,
saying?
what's funny is it shows a scene where the alien actually looks at the cat inside
Yes.
the cage,
Really?
and
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
so I was like, okay, because I watched this movie last night, and I was like, I can't remember if this cat just becomes like like a snack for this alien, but apparently the alien was like, I'm a cat lover myself. I'm just gonna let it go.
Well, see, I
Okay,
went
well,
back
fun
and
fact.
I had to look it up because I thought, okay, she got rid of the alien, but the alien had to come back in some kind of way in part 2, right? So I thought that it had infected the cat because I remember the scene that you're talking about, Cade, where she drops the cat and it's sitting in the cage, and the alien kind of looks at the cat, and then they cut from that and they go back to Sigourney Weaver and what she's doing. And then when she goes back to get the cat goes with her on the escape pod. So I'm sitting there going, did the alien infect the cat? And from what I found out, the alien, in fact, did not infect the cat.
Yeah, yeah.
Kate, I've got a fun fact about the cat. There were
Okay.
Well, let's hear it.
There were 4 cats that they filmed. 4 cats. One was the cat that hissed at the alien. Then there was the cat that was running around the whole time. Then there was the cat that was in the crate, and there was like a 4th one for I don't know, maybe the one that was inside of the sleeping
That
chamber.
That's hilarious. That first cat that was like hissing was probably super pissed off and like couldn't actually do any scenes. So
But
Ridley
that's
Scott was
like
get another
that's
one.
like the number one rule of any horror movie. And that's another question that I'm gonna pose here in a minute. But in any horror movie, if you see a cat, you're about to die. You just
Really?
are. If you're in a horror movie and you see the cat, you're about to die. And to add insult to injury, the cat will live.
Always 9 lives, baby.
Time. Every single time the cat will live. Now, my question to you guys is, in your opinion, do you consider Alien a horror movie or do you consider it a sci-fi movie?
It's got to be sci-fi for me.
I was about to ask a similar question to Corky because I don't know if now Corky, you're a huge slasher guy. I know you are too, Daniel. The death scenes in this movie where the aliens actually going and hunting people, how does that compare to some of the other iconic, slashers such as your Michael Myers or your Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger, taking out people? Do you think that this is kind of up to that level of like, deaths and things of that nature? Or do you kind of think it holds back a little bit?
In
Well,
my
see, go ahead,
Go
Daniel.
ahead.
I'll let you go first.
Well, all right. So in my personal opinion, the suspense is set up different. So this suspense for Alien is set up more like an action suspense movie. And that suspense building like that, even though people are dying and it's gruesome, the suspense was set up in this movie a little differently than what the suspense was set up for, say, Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, because what you have is the pacing of those movies is uh it's it it the suspense is building up to where that Michael Myers is stalking the person before he kills them. Well, the alien is also kind of stalking the person, but you don't know exactly what the alien is yet. You know what you're going to get with Michael Myers and with Freddy and with Jason. You didn't exactly know what was going on with that suspense with the alien. So it's almost the suspense that they were creating was almost like an action movie suspense, to where you are expecting this big showdown, this big fight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well-
Corky, you may look at it differently. I don't know. That's the
Well,
way that I look at it.
I can totally agree with how you're looking at it, but I look at it like this. It in my mind, it's simple. If you're going to be a slasher, it has to take place on Earth. The minute that it goes to space and you're in a spaceship, it becomes a sci-fi movie.
What about
to
when
me.
Jason X?
Jason
Yeah,
X? Jason
that's
X.
what I was gonna say. That's
See,
Oh, man.
Jason
and that's
X.
a perfect point to your question, because even though Jason X, Jason's one of the greatest slashers of all times. You can tell behind me, he's my favorite slasher
The
of all
OG.
time. But Jason in space doesn't work as a slasher just because he's in space. Now, this is just in my mind. You know, if you're going to be a slasher, you need to be on Earth. You need to be at a camp. You need to be in a neighborhood. You need to be in somebody's dreams. You need to be somewhere on the physical planet. The moment in my mind that, you know, it goes to space and you're on a spaceship, it becomes sci-fi to me. Even though that alien beast was stalking people and killing them, it's still a sci-fi movie and we're fighting aliens to me. It's not a slasher to me. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to agree with me, but that's
No,
just how I see it.
I get that. I agree. And that's why I am and okay, so let me add to what you're saying, Corky. I am very much a horror movie buff. I never was much into sci-fi. Star Wars would be my only kind of avenue into sci-fi. The rest of it is horror for me, and I just didn't really care for sci-fi until I started watching Alien. And Alien, even though for me it's not a horror movie, it is horrific enough for me to say that is one of the only sci-fi movies that I can get into, besides the Star Wars, whole series.
Well, you know, the Alien movie, it definitely scared people, because just like in The Exorcist, when the alien burst out of Ash's chest, you know, there were reports of people passing out in the theaters and stuff then, also, just like in The
point,
Exorcist.
actually.
So
And
it definitely scared people. I guess it's all in your own personal take.
Well,
whether
in
it's a slasher or not.
in 1979, you wasn't seeing the same kind of stuff that we're seeing now. So that alien coming out of dude's chest, it provided the shock value that would cause people to pass out. So they
Right.
wouldn't use seeing stuff like that back then. You got to remember, we're talking about a really good movie that was made in the 70s. They didn't have the kind of technology. They wasn't working with technology that they have now. And so, that's part of what makes this movie so good to me. They took the limitations of what they could do with the practical effects, and they did the best job that they could have done with it, and I bought into it.
Yep. And
agree.
to add on to that, there was another scene in the movie that didn't even have any blood or guts in it, but it was still such like a weird, gross thing to watch. It was when they actually took Ash and they beat him up, decapitated him. And you could see all his inner workings. You could see like the milk like substance coming out of his mouth. And then you see him even pounce on that technician, and like he's still attacking him. That scene, you're like, ooh, like this just kind of makes me feel gross, because like you see the wiring and stuff. And so that scene
always freaked me out.
It is
always
freaky.
freaked me
That
out.
scene,
Oh yeah.
and that scene has more of the sexual innuendo. I mean that because I mean, just what he was doing in the scene was supposed to, supposed to be like something in real life, and he stuck a pornographic magazine down into her throat. That's what he was choking her with, was the pornographic magazine. And
I
then
noticed
whenever
that.
That was a
whenever
weird
they
scene.
whenever they decapitate him, he's got all of the milk like substance that's on. I mean, it's all kind of wrapped up in that whole sexual tone, sexual symbolism.
You know what? It sounds like this movie's got kind of like a pervert undertone to it. You know what I'm saying?
And you've
A
got
little bit,
Sigourney
yeah.
Weaver in her underwear.
Yeah, that doesn't like to trim her bush up. If
That,
we're being
that-
honest.
Yeah. So
yeah.
so my wife was so confused when she walked into the room, and I was just watching this on her TV, and it was on that scene, and you just see like the low cut like underwear. She was like, what is happening? She's not familiar with the franchise at all. And I was like, oh, she's just going into, like a cryogenic sleep, that's what everybody would do. They'd wear that type of clothing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
everyone walks around with their butt crack hanging out when they're about to go to
yeah.
bed.
And I think
That's
I
just
agree
like,
with what you guys are saying of how this is more of like a sci-fi film. And I think the franchise, it even gets more exemplified into being like this, especially when you watch Aliens and you see these guys actually going and attacking these aliens with machine guns. You have huge iconic
Space
fight scenes.
Marines, baby.
Aliens
yes,
come out in what 86?
I guess so.
I don't know.
I
I'd
know
have to
I
look
wasn't
that
even
up.
alive, so I have to look it up. Let me
I'm
see.
guessing. I'm guessing 86. I don't know.
Let me see.
Look it up.
July 14th, 1986. Big summer flick
There we
right
go,
there for
baby.
you.
I'm that good. I don't even
So-
know. I don't even know, and I say 86.
So it's like 7 years between those movies. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's-
took a
that is
huge
kinda
break
crazy.
there. I will say if you guys ever go and watch some of the newer films in the franchise, such as Alien Romulus,
Oh, just
that
watched it. It was a great movie, man. Great movie.
I
Watch
absolutely
that.
I cannot recommend that more than anything. I mean, it has some of that flair from the original movie, but they
So-
actually add more horror, I think, to this one.
For
So that's
Alien,
something to check out.
for Alien Romulus, in your personal opinion, would you need to do any more research and watch any previous movies, or can you watch Alien Romulus and still understand what's going on with only having seen Alien?
Yes.
think- Yeah, I think you
Let-
can.
Let me tell you guys about, and I won't give no spoilers here, but there's a scene in Alien Romulus that this gives a callback to the original movie, and
Yep.
basically they're in a ship and they're fighting this. What was the name they gave the alien? Is it
Xenomorph.
Xenomorph?
It is Xenomorph. Yep.
So they're fighting the Xenomorph, but they're wanting to shoot it. And they have the problem that, and they're like, no, you can't shoot it because it bleeds acid and it'll bleed through the ship and we're all going to be dead then. So they're having to, and didn't they, I'll be quiet. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it's a cool movie. I watched it when I went up to Ohio back in August, and it's a cool movie because there's some gravity stuff going on and some acid blood floating around. It's awesome.
Oh,
So
And
check
I
that
gotta
out.
say,
Nice.
that movie has one of the creepiest. I don't want to spoil it. Like designs of a certain character in this movie, and it is like you watch it, and I was in the theater when I saw it, and there were people around me going like literally like WTF, like out loud,
Yeah,
like what is
yeah.
that? And when you see it, you're like, dude, that's crazy. And
That's
the other
awesome.
movies like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, those two are prequels. You could check those out. They kind of give you more background on those aliens you saw, the big
Okay.
tall aliens back on the horseshoe ship.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also a game, Alien Isolation. I think I mentioned this to you guys last week. It actually takes place, and you're the daughter of Ellen Ripley, and it is very much like the original movie where you're fighting the alien, hiding from it, and everything. So there's just some more recommendations. Honestly, if you're wanting to get more into the franchise, I might get you hooked on it.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't seen a lot of the other movies, but we sat down and watched that Alien Romulus, and I tell you what, it is a good movie. That's all I can say about it.
What I'm
One
talking
of my favorite
about.
movies last year for sure.
Right, right. Well, we've covered the whole movie. Does anybody have, before we rate it, does anybody got anything else they want to add before we go to the rating? No?
Oh,
I think so.
I put my heart out there. I'm pumped.
We can tell this is Cade's passion, and that's great.
Yeah,
'Cause it's a
man.
great movie.
it is.
I love this. It's seriously just like just going back, like when I was sitting and watching the aerial view of the ship in space, and you just see, like how Brent was mentioning, the industrial looking ship, the sunlight from the near star and their system lighting it up, and all the analog controls in the ship. I nerd out over that kind of stuff. I think it's just so
Me too,
cool how
bro.
they're able to design that. And so I think that's kind of made me appreciate this movie, and I think it'll be one that I'll watch for years, and I'll always feel this way about it.
I'll say this. I rewatched that for the first time in years, the original Alien on Sunday, and I have rediscovered Alien. I am going to watch all the rest of the movies. I haven't seen all of the movies. I've seen bits and pieces of some of them, but I have rediscovered Alien, and um, and I'm digging it. I really like it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I challenge you. Aliens 2, in my opinion, is better than the first movie.
All right.
And at least you sit down and watch Romulus, because, man, it is a
I'm gonna do.
great movie.
I'm gonna
It's a
do it.
great movie. It's a great
Don't
movie.
watch
gonna do
Alien
it.
vs Predator.
Nah, I don't even count
I've
those.
seen Alien vs Predator, and I liked it. So
Oh
I mean,
my god, that one's so crazy.
So I will watch these movies, and I will let you know my thoughts.
Yeah, and then we will cover them on the podcast. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get ready to rate this thing. Brent, break it down for us on how we're going to rate this movie.
All right, so this is going to be a new way going forward when we rate movies. We're going to break it into certain topics. So I have 5 topics. We'll rate them like usual, 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And then at the end, after we've rated all of the different topics, you take the average score, and that is your overall rating for the movie. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's good.
So the 5 topics, cultural significance. So this would be, how has this movie seeped into pop culture, if at all? Is this a movie that gets a lot of callbacks and other pop culture media? Has it changed the way that we see movies, etc.? Then we've got special effects. Special effects also includes set design, uh, like costumes, things like that. The third is music, the soundtrack, theme songs. The fourth is going to be the symbolism in the movie. Was there any big symbols in the movie that made you really think, and how deep were those? And then the fifth is your overall enjoyment of the movie. So is this a movie you would watch again? Is this a movie you're going to watch every year? Or is this like, how would you, how was the enjoyment of the movie overall? So we'll rate those 1 through 5. Whatever your average score is going to be your average score, overall average score of the movie. Does that make sense with everyone?
It makes sense, man. Who wants to kick it
so-
off?
Well, I guess I can go first, unless
Go for it, buddy.
Okay. All right. So cultural significance, I gave it a 4. I think that it's changed the way that we look at sci-fi horror. I would have to. I mean, it has to be one of the first. I know in the 50s and 60s they did a lot of alien stuff, but this is the first kind of slasher movie in space type of movie. And there's a lot of callbacks to Alien and a lot of other pop cultural media. So I give it a 4 out of 5. Special effects for the time, 100%. I give it a 5 out of 5. I think this is some of the best special effects that I've seen in a movie. The costume designs, the set designs. I mean, the spaceship looked amazing. The alien looked amazing. The face hugger looked amazing. A 5 out of 5 for sure. The soundtrack, the music, I give a 3, just because I couldn't remember what the soundtrack was after I watched the movie. There wasn't much of a soundtrack. I went back and looked it up on YouTube. It sounds cool, but it's nothing. It's not going to be like the Halloween theme or anything that you want to listen to outside of the movie.
Right.
The symbolism. After looking up the symbolism, I'm a big symbolism guy. I love that sort of stuff. I give it a 5 out of 5. The way that you can tell it has a theme, a central theme of the movie, and it uses the plot of the movie to progress that theme. And like I love that sort of stuff. It was great, and the more you look into it, the more you learn. Yeah, 5 out of 5. The overall enjoyment. This is where you guys are gonna yell at me, and this is why I didn't say anything when you asked if this is a slasher horror movie, if this is sci-fi. So I wanted to get into that.
Give it to
Enjoyment
us
of the
straight.
movie. Enjoyment of the movie. I give it 3 out of 5.
Oh,
Here's
oh man.
Oh,
My heart.
here's here's why. Here's why.
Oh my.
Going into
Explain
it,
yourself.
going going into it, I thought that this movie was going to be a horror movie in space. Like I thought it was a horror movie. The tagline of the movie is literally "In space, no one can hear you scream." So I thought this, which is an awesome tagline, by the way, but I thought this movie was going to be a horror movie. And watching it, it's not a horror movie. I mean, it has some horror aspects, just like when the alien uh, shoots out of the guy's chest. That's horror. Um, Whenever the guy is going through the air duct and you just hear the beeping sounds, and
Yes.
whenever he drops down and the alien's standing right there, that's a horror scene. But the rest of the movie is it is more of an action sci-fi than it is a horror movie. And I'm just not a huge action movie guy. And so I give it a 3 out of 5 just because the rewatch value to me personally is not very high. I do want to watch uh, Alien Romulus. I want to watch, Aliens, the second movie. But yeah, I mean, I would have to give it a 3 out of 5 just because if they made it more horror, if it was more horror focused, they had everything you needed there to make a fantastic horror movie. Because there's nowhere these people can run. You're in a spaceship in space, and this could just be a straight up slasher horror movie. I feel like it really took a turn more towards the sci-fi action side. So my overall rating of the movie, 4 out of 5. Whenever you average all of those out, that would be a 4 out of 5. So this movie, to me, is a 4 out of 5 movie. Alien. I'm glad I
All
watched
right.
it.
All right. Well, good job on that, buddy. Daniel, I'll let you go next, man.
all right, man. So I was sitting there figuring my totals up while he was talking, and for the cultural significance, I give it a 3 out of 5. I think 3 is about average when you're looking at this. So the reason why I say 3 out of 5, this ended up with a pretty big following. Okay, you call it a cult following, you call it just a normal following or whatever, but it was uh, a very big following for a genre that normally is a niche following. And what I mean by that is it's the sci-fi community is a lot bigger than what it used to be, but it's still kind of a niche community, right? So Alien was very significant with gaining the following that it did. So kudos to this movie for that. Special effects, 100% for me, 5 out of 5. You have to remember that this was made in 1979.
Yes.
Everything was practical effects, and for this movie to have looked as good as what it did, it can't be rated anything lower than a 5 out of 5. The music for me is a hard one, and it sounds like I'm being tough on it when I say 3 out of 5. But a lot of the music is they don't really have a big score for it. And I think that not having the music in the background for a lot of the scenes causes tension. And that is what they were trying to build up, is to build up the tension. Um, and for that, it was done purposely, but because of the lack of a huge score, I would give it a 3 out of 5. It was still what they did use in it, sound effects, the music and the score was still very, very good, but it was purposely left, just like what Brent was saying, in space, nobody can hear you scream. That silence that they were using in the background for a lot of that buildup and the tension was done on purpose. So then number 4 was symbolism. And symbolism, we've talked all about the symbolism of this movie, so it's definitely there. It's they use the symbolism in a variety of different ways. So I rate that a 4 out of 5. And then my overall enjoyment of the movie, just like I said, I have a new love for the Alien series in itself. So that's a 5 out of 5 for me. So when you average all of that stuff up, my total for Alien as a movie is a 4 out of 5. Very solid 4 out of 5.
All right, all right. I can agree with that. I'll go next, Cade, and we'll save you for the last, buddy, since
Yes, sir.
this was your favorite movie here. So for myself, if I'm thinking cultural significance, I'm going to give it a 5 because you could have not seen this movie at all, and you can see a picture of that xenomorph, and you'll know exactly where it came from. So that's why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 for that one. Special effects, 100%, 5 out of 5. The movie's made in 1979, and this movie to this day still looks beautiful. So I'll give it a 5 out of 5. They've done some awesome stuff with those special effects. Music, I'm gonna give it a 3 because I'll be honest, I don't really remember much about the movies. It's music. You can play the theme from Friday the 13th, and I can tell you exactly what that is. The theme from Halloween, I can tell you exactly what that is. But with this movie, I don't really remember the music, so I'll give it a 3. Could possibly even go a 2, but I'll give it a 3. Symbolism, shoot, I'm gonna give it a 5, man. Anytime we're dealing with sexual undertones and stuff like that, I got to give it a 5 for that. That's just awesome. Overall enjoyment, 5 out of 5, baby. Uh, love this movie. I'll watch it again. Love the whole franchise. So, Brent, if I went 5.5, 3.5, what's that average up? I didn't do that.
Yeah, let me do it real quick. Cade, you're the math guy. Let's see. 5.
Is it 5 plus 5 plus 3?
It's 23 altogether. 23 divided by 5.
Your score will be a 4.6. You want to round that up?
Yeah,
4.6.
round it up to a 5. So
You're
you're
going to round
so
it
your
up and make
overall
me smile?
The big
You're-
5 out of 5.
We'll
your
give it a 5
overall-
out of 5 for me, baby. That's what I'm talking about. All right, to end the
That's it.
night, Cade, baby, break it down for us.
Oh,
How do you
man.
rate this movie?
Listen, this movie, I've said it this whole night here. I just absolutely love this thing. I think I'm heavily biased in it. I think it's just kind of gives me a special feeling. Everybody has their favorite movies. When you watch them, you're just happy. You're smiling. You're like, wow, this is just such a cool experience. And so I think with cultural significance, I'm also going to give this one a 5. I really feel like, this movie took the sci-fi genre and kind of showed the other side of it. 'Cause, we had Star Wars, and it showed, the bright scenes, the cool lightsabers, really cool uplifting things. And then you go and look at this movie and you see this gloomy ship. You see this crew that's, rugged, they're rough around the edges. And so I think, that kind of maybe paved the way for other, future dystopia or sci-fi films, something like Blade Runner, maybe, that kind of showed you can have these cool rugged designs for these futuristic ships. And so that's what gives me that score. Special effects, of course, I'm gonna give this one a 5 as well. Yeah, I mean, special effects. The first thing I'm gonna think of here is the ship itself. How they film this ship. Similar to what they did in Star Wars. And of course, you can't not have the chest burst scene when you think about these practical effects. Everything they did, they're using real organs from animals to make this even more gory. They really livened this thing up with the special effects. Of course, next the soundtrack. I'm gonna give the soundtrack actually a 4 out of 5 here. I can kind of agree with you guys about the iconic score here. You don't have like your Halloween song. Everybody remembers that. There is one soundtrack in this movie that it actually does appear in a couple other media with the franchise, specifically in that game I was telling you guys about. If I could figure out the name of the song, I would. But yeah, I think with music here, 4 out of 5 is a good rating. Symbolism, I think we all talked about that pretty heavily here. You know, the innuendos you guys have mentioned. You know, I think that gives this movie a 5 for that score. And then obviously overall enjoyment. I smile when I watch this movie. You probably shouldn't when you watch a horror film or something of this nature. But like, I nerd out seeing these guys, you know, the technicians and the engineers working on the ship, you know, all the analog controls and the buttons, and even just down to the PC that they're using to communicate with Mother, you know, in that really cool looking designed room. I think that is just so
Yes.
cool. I'm like, I know that I have a cool computer at work, but I want to type on something like that and hear those noises and the clinking, you know, it's so cool. And when you average all my scores, it comes out at a 4.8, but of course I'm going to give this movie a 5. I recommend it. I hope you guys go and check it out. You know, check out some of the games that have come out with this. You know, if you want to immerse yourself, I think they just released, or they're going to be releasing a VR version of Alien Isolation. And so, you know, you can really put yourself in that world if you try that out. But yeah, that's my score, guys.
Awesome, man. So I think overall, I think this movie is going to be close to a 5 out of 5 if you average everybody's score together. What do you think?
Pretty much. Mine was
It would be a
4.0.
It would be a 4.5 because me and Dad was 4, you and Cade were 5. So this movie is as close to 5 out of 5 as you can get.
Shoot,
All
yeah.
right. Or you heard it here. We recommend it. So, you know, from everybody here at Remember That, from Corky, my hetero life mate Daniel, and Brent and Cade, we appreciate everybody listening to us. And we're going to cut out of here. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
See you. Bye.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. You got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember.